Do you feel you're at a disadvantage without having a spouse by being a bachelor, which is pretty rare in U.S. politics?
Yeah, I think I'd be the first bachelor in 100 years. I think America is ready for this. If I'm qualified to lead the nation.
Many people who follow American politics know Lindsey Graham as a tough voice in the Senate, but few have seen the private place he calls home. Behind the loud debates and bright lights of Washington, there is a quieter side to politics. Tucked away from the cameras, this is where the longtime senator relaxes, unwinds, and spends time with his partner. The home itself tells a story of comfort and privacy. So what is this place really like? And what does it reveal about his private side today? Lindsey Graham's Seneca home in a quiet little town in Seneca. Life moves at a slower pace. It's the kind of place where people usually argue about football games, not world politics. Seneca sits in the golden corner of South Carolina, near peaceful lakes and long two-lane roads. It feels very far away from the bright lights and busy studios of Washington. That distance matters. When people search online for where Lindsey Graham lives, they often expect to see a huge mansion owned by a powerful politician. But the truth is much simpler and more ordinary. His real home base is smaller, steadier, and very real. According to his official Senate biography, Graham lives in Seneca. It says it clearly, with no mystery or hidden meaning. Once you know that, many of the rumors people spread online start to feel less convincing. If the town itself is not a secret, why would the life inside it need to be secret? Search results often show phrases like Lindsey Graham Seneca House or Lindsey Graham Home in South Carolina. But search terms are not answers. They are only clues. The real story is where those clues lead. Seneca is not just a random spot on a map. It has its own rhythm. It's the kind of town where people recognize your truck and greet you by name. Privacy there is less about tall walls and security gates, and more about simple respect and good manners. Graham's long connection to South Carolina helps explain why a small town like this still feels like a safe harbor after years in national politics. If you were in his place, would you choose the nonstop noise of Washington, or a quiet town where you can simply be yourself? Now let's talk about the house itself, without doing anything intrusive. We're not sharing an address or zooming into street view images, but public reports have described the basics. Around the 2016 campaign period, reports said Graham kept two homes, a ranch-style house in Seneca and a townhome in Washington, D.C. That tells us something important. His life runs on two maps. Seneca is his personal home base. Washington is his work base, where politics, schedules, votes, and cameras never stop. Reports describe the Seneca house as about 1,900 square feet. His Washington townhome was smaller and listed with normal public record details like size and property value. This isn't a kind of luxury you see with celebrities. It's simply practical. For a politician, it's like keeping a travel bag ready for constant trips between work and home. Imagine what that looks like in everyday life. A modest ranch home. Doesn't shout mystery or drama. Instead, it suggests normal routines. A key hanging by the door, a refrigerator opened after a late flight, and a porch light that turns on when someone comes home. This is where the internet often gets restless. Official biographies talk loudly about careers, but stay quiet about private life. Graham's Senate biography focuses on his work and his roots. Sources like Encyclopedia Britannica discuss his elections and political roles. They do not focus on a spouse or a traditional family story. Suddenly, Seneca becomes more than a town. The house becomes more than a house. It turns into a blank screen where people project their theories and then treat those theories like facts. But the simple facts remain clear. We know the location, Seneca. We know the setup, a home in South Carolina and another place in Washington for work. And the reason may be simple too: privacy, comfort, or loyalty to the place he has always called home. If that's where he lives, who actually lives there with him? Or does he have another home? Let's find out. Lindsey Graham's personal life, unlike many public figures who openly share details about their spouses or families, Graham's public biography says very little about romance. The most direct explanation actually comes from his own book, My Story. In the memoir, he openly explains that he never married. According to him, the reason was simple. Life and timing never quite lined up. He describes himself as a long-time bachelor. At different points in his life, he dated and even had serious relationships. In fact, he admits there was a time when he thought about proposing to someone. But in the end, things did not work out. Either he had not found the right person, or the right person could not fit into the demanding life he was building in politics. His explanation is straightforward. It is not a story about a hidden romance or a secret partner behind closed doors. It is simply the story of a man whose career kept moving forward while his personal life followed a different path. Online discussions often treat a powerful single man like a mystery waiting to be solved. When someone in public life does not show up at events with a spouse or post family photos, people begin to fill in the gaps with their own theories. Suddenly, the absence of information becomes evidence. A missing detail turns into a clue. This raises an interesting question. Why do people assume every public figure must have a hidden partner? Why is being a bachelor treated like a plot twist instead of just another way to live? Even basic references repeat the same simple story. For example, Wikipedia notes that Graham has never married and has no children. It also mentions that he had relationships earlier in life and once considered marriage. That detail is important because it shows that romance was not completely absent from his life. He dated, he thought about settling down, but ultimately he chose privacy and continued focusing on his career. Graham had relationships. He considered marriage. He never settled down, and he prefers to keep his personal life private. And in the modern internet age, privacy often fuels curiosity even more than secrecy. When people cannot easily see what is happening in someone's personal life, speculation grows quickly. Think about how headlines and online videos work. A title like Lindsey Graham's home in Seneca might be accurate, but it sounds ordinary. On the other hand, a headline suggesting he lives with a partner instantly creates intrigue. Algorithms love mystery, tension, and unanswered questions. But there is an important difference people often forget. Something that is not publicly confirmed is not the same thing as something that is secretly confirmed. Those two. Carolina, the house feels different. It carries the quiet rhythm of a personal space. It looks like the kind of place where life might slow down a little. Yet even there, the outside world never fully disappears. The noise of national politics always seems to find a way to reach the front door. One can actually feel that tension in the way people talk about the house online. Some imagine the Seneca home as a secret bunker, a hidden place far from the chaos of Washington. Others picture it as a peaceful retreat by the lake, where a senator can finally breathe. Relationships need certain things to survive. They need time. They need stability. They need ordinary moments, quiet dinners, predictable routines, and space away from the spotlight. Political life offers very little of that. Instead, it rewards performance, constant availability, and the feeling that you must always be on. But one detail changes the picture in an interesting way. A profile from the Los Angeles Times described both of Graham's homes as long-held, steady residences. They are not temporary crash pads or chaotic, revolving doors. They suggest routine and stability, a consistent base in Washington and a consistent base in South Carolina. And that leads to a sharper question than simply asking, who is the partner? If your life is split between two cities, endless flights, and a schedule that never slows down, what kind of rhythm does that create for a relationship? Even if a partner existed, that rhythm would shape everything. And this is where the meaning of the word partner starts to change. For some people, the word means romance. For others, it means purpose. Sometimes the real companion in a person's life is the mission that organizes their days. For a long time, the quiet of Seneca seemed to protect a little distance from that reality. But in 2024, that sense of privacy was suddenly interrupted. Protesters appeared outside the senator's home, turning what was supposed to be a private space into a public stage. It was a reminder that in modern politics, even your front yard can become part of the national conversation. Then came the day when the outside world followed him all the way to the doorstep. On July 4, 2024, His private address briefly became a kind of public theater. Not in Washington, not during a Senate hearing, not on a televised debate, but right there in Seneca, South Carolina, the very place where the idea of home is supposed to mean you can finally stop performing. Yet on that day, the performance arrived anyway. Reports said that a pro-Palestinian protest took place outside Senator Lindsey Graham's home. Demonstrators were angry about his strong support for Israel as the Israel-Hamas war continued. The timing made the moment feel almost cinematic. The 4th of July is usually a day filled with flags, barbecues, laughter, and neighbors waving to each other across driveways. But outside that house, the mood was very different. Instead of fireworks and family noise, there were protest signs, chants, and a message delivered directly to a place where messages are not usually sent. So, who could be with him there? Could it be a political spouse? Let's find out. Ambition as a partner decades in public service, split between the bustling halls of Washington and the quiet corners of South Carolina. A life shaped by campaigns, votes, hearings, and endless policy battles. For some, the answer is a clear no. For others, that career becomes the constant companion, the steady presence that never leaves. Then there's Seneca. His life story shows he never turned away from his home state. As his fame grew, he stayed anchored there. The house isn't just a building. It's a symbol of roots, stability, and a fixed point in a life otherwise measured in flights, press briefings, and headlines. Over time, a place can start to feel like family. Return often enough, live in the same rhythms, and it begins to act as one. Look at the pattern. No confirmed spouse, no romantic partner in the home, yet a constant return to service. A constant return to South Carolina. A constant return to the Senate floor. When something remains that steady for so long, it starts to feel less like a job and more like a bond. Here's the uncomfortable question. Can ambition become a partner? Ambition is demanding. It follows you home. It keeps you awake. It shapes your choices and decides who stays and who leaves. It doesn't need anniversaries or candlelit dinners, but it does demand total commitment. That doesn't mean romance never happened. He had past relationships and even considered marriage. But timing, priorities, and life's direction never allowed it to fully take root. Instead, his life found another path. Public service became a long-term relationship. So when people ask, where does Lindsey Graham live with his partner? Maybe the truth is closer than they realize. The partner may not be a person at all. It may be the mission itself, the state he serves, the career he chose, the structure that shaped his identity. Patterns like these don't appear overnight. They start in childhood, hardened by moments of crisis. In his case, early life was a blueprint. Central South Carolina, long before the Senate, long before headlines about foreign policy, long before questions about his personal life. He lost both parents while still young, nearly at the same time, and suddenly adulthood arrived. One day, a teenager, the next raising his younger sister. That responsibility isn't a minor detail. It's the architecture of a life. Early duty rewires priorities. You stop asking what you want and start asking what must be done. You stop drifting and start planning. That mindset, formed at 16 or 17, doesn't vanish at 40 or 60. It becomes the operating system. He managed bills, kept life stable, and ensured his sister could finish school. There was no pause, just action, duty, and forward motion. Early independence teaches self-reliance, shaping how a person views partnership. Being used to carrying weight alone doesn't close you off to connection. It simply means you're wired for structure, purpose, and control. So, what are your thoughts on Lindsey Graham's private life? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Ideas are very different. The lack of public proof does not mean there is a hidden relationship. It simply means there is no public proof. That is why searches like "Does Lindsey Graham have a partner?" often lead to bold claims, but very little solid evidence. In many ways, the mystery says more about the audience than about Graham himself. People like stories that feel complete, a political figure with a spouse, children, and holiday photos. When those pieces are missing, some assume there must be a hidden explanation. But sometimes the explanation is simply that a person lives differently. His hometown also plays a role in this quiet lifestyle. Graham's main residence is in Seneca, a small and peaceful town in South Carolina. Life there moves slowly, quiet streets, friendly neighbors, and a strong church community. It is the kind of place where someone can live quietly without attracting constant attention. But Graham's life is not centered in only one place. Like many national politicians, he lives between two worlds. When the Senate is in session, his schedule shifts to Washington, D.C. There, the rhythm of life is completely different. Security checkpoints, policy briefings, votes, late-night meetings, and constant phone calls. The calm pace of Seneca and the intense energy of Washington create two very different environments. Reports say Graham owns a ranch-style home in Seneca that he purchased decades ago. In Washington, he has a smaller brick townhouse with 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms that he bought in the late 1990s. These homes are not extravagant mansions. Instead, they reflect something practical: a home base in South Carolina and a work base in the nation's capital. In other words, his life is built around movement between these two places. Many people search for a single house where they imagine a hidden truth might exist behind closed curtains. But Graham's reality is less mysterious and more routine. His life moves back and forth between 2 locations, 2 schedules, and 2 versions of daily life. Once you see that rhythm clearly, the missing partner mystery begins to look different. However, this is about a man who chose a demanding public career, stayed private about his personal life, and built a lifestyle that moves constantly between home and work. But can a career become the closest companion in someone's life? And when a person is always in the public eye, constantly watched and judged, where do they find a safe place to keep something truly private? Let's take a closer look at a house between 2 worlds in Washington. A house often feels less like a home and more like a command post. It is a place where the day is constantly resetting, a place to change suits, skim through briefing papers, take a short nap between meetings, and then start the cycle all over again. It is practical, efficient, and built for motion. But in Seneca, South,